I'm Patrice.
And I'm Whitney.
And we are the creators of the Artist Guide to the Music Industry. And we're here to help you all navigate your way through the things to do and not to do that we've experienced as artists who have been able to land gigs at like Gillette Stadium,
Fenway Park,
Keith Urban, right? A whole bunch of different things. So we come with some experience. That's why we say that there. And we want to be able to help you. So today we want to talk about something that can come up quite frequently when dealing with artists who are starting their journey as writers, which is something, I don't know, would you advocate? I think every artist should at least try it.
Absolutely.
I think it's self-gratifying, but it's also a great way into the industry. And so most people start and they're not great. Right? So we need to kind of understand how do we navigate our way through. And a lot of times what comes up is people get what's called
writer's block.
So we want to show you 3 tips, essentially, that you can take away to get past that block onto the hits. So stick around as we break down 3 tips you can do to get past writer's block. Okay, all. So what's tip number 1? Stop overthinking. Right? I think as artists, we can be perfectionists and we're trying to make these hits. And the reality is, I don't know if anyone comes out the gate writing hits.
Right?
Yeah. I don't know anyone who has done that, and maybe there have been. Maybe there most definitely have. But most people, the journey is just right.
Right. Even if it's a debut artist with their number one song, their first song becoming a hit, they probably wrote 1,000 songs before they got to that point anyway.
100%. And those people too, which we'll get into in a bit, is they have co-writers and they may have other people behind them. But definitely just writing. Don't filter yourself. Right? A lot of times people will write, and I guess I've done this and I've had to try and back away from doing this, is like stop trying to write the lyrics initially and just let stuff come out.
Right, yeah, exactly. And another thing I think would be helpful is I've used to try to write a song and then be like, well, what would this person think? No. Just write what you're thinking, because otherwise you can't. What are you thinking, Patrice? I'm going to try to guess what she's thinking right now. You think I can do it? Maybe. That could be fun. All right, we'll do that.
That'll be a fun one. We'll get back to that. But yeah, that's a great thing, right? You can't anticipate what anyone else. You can put yourself in someone else's shoes if you were trying to write from that perspective, and you can imagine and you can try and channel that, but you're not going to be able to get into that person's mind and necessarily do that. So the first thing is just writing, letting it come out. Do a brain, it's called, like, if you've ever heard it, a brain dump. Just letting out whatever kind of comes, and could be colors. I mean, look at Taylor Swift's Red, right? It's like, who would kind of think about necessarily coming out with that initially? So that would be tip number 1 is always just kind of let things out. Don't think about necessarily the structure of the song. Sometimes it may come out that way, but other times it doesn't. I'd say more times than not, it's just kind of like letting stuff out. And from there, picking through and kind of going, okay, what could be this or that? And then you had a good point on the voice memos.
Always have your voice memos recording, especially if you're singing out loud, because you're not going to remember what you just sang. And you're like, it's genius. What was it? I don't know. I don't remember like the exact way I sang it. And that was so cool. I felt a way.
Yeah.
And you're not going to remember. So always have that recording. You can always delete it after if you listen through and you don't like it.
Yeah.
But
I think there's a great point there. So let's move forward. Okay, all, so we're going to dive into tip number 2. But before we do that, today we want to give you an incredible freebie, which is Songwriting 101, a book that we put together, myself and Whitney, on different tips that you can utilize in order to become a better songwriter, especially for those who are starting out and kind of at a point where they're not quite sure where to start. It can also be great for people who are just looking for other tips, right? Sometimes we can get in our mode and it can work for us, and sometimes we run into barriers and slow us down. So it can be a great way for you to check that out and hopefully get past that. So you can just check out the link below, or if you're coming from another source above, and you can, for free, download that today for you. But let's move forward into tip number 2. And that is no song structure.
Yes.
Right? So there's something to be said about like brain dumping and getting things out and just kind of putting there. And then sometimes people can get lost, especially newbies, and it's like, what is a song structure? Right? What even does that entail? And so I think looking and understanding that there's a standard kind of pop song format, which is your verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, where am I at? Bridge. And then it could go chorus, outro, double chorus, multiple different ways there. But to that point, there could be multiple different ways. But there's plenty of other ways, and I think sometimes that can hold us prisoner if we just think about one way.
I like songs that start with the chorus, and you're just in it. You're right away. I haven't written one yet, though.
I have done that. But yeah, I think it's definitely like getting and having that sense of security, if you haven't already, is like looking at what different ways. Imagine by the Beatles. Yeah. That's a super interesting, we have that here. It's a super interesting song because it doesn't necessarily really have so much of, I would say, a chorus.
Right, yeah.
Just like, imagine all the people. Right, the unifying thing that I think is like hooky with it, or that gets people, because sometimes what the chorus really can be the part we can use as writers or as a connection point. Tends to have the repetition, be it word-wise or melodically, that gets people, that's typically what you sing along with in the car, right?
Right, yeah. And that just has it, imagine, 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 so it repeats that a lot.
I think that's the hooky part of it. And then it does have that, imagine all the people living for today, right? And then it goes back and imagine there's all that.
Yeah.
So it's not really your standard. And had they sat there and been like, ooh, we gotta write in the standard form, we would never have that hit song that continues to live out today.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's just something to be said on that end, that we can look at different song structures. I remember my journey when I was starting. I was working with someone I'd never written before, and it was a great program, and they were like, here, you're going to write like this. But at one point, it was good to kind of start it and get something going, but it was kind of hailed as like, this is the be-all, end-all, and this is what you need to be doing with every song. And I think that can be really restricting.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're kind of like, oh, I have to follow this formula. And there are formulas to things, and it's okay to work within that. But I think for me, it was very liberating to be like, oh, there's more than one formula, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and I think that's one big thing. I know we pass on. It's just like, don't feel handcuffed to one thing. There could be some other things. You might find one thing that really works for you, but some people write with music. Some people like to just start with the lyrics. Yeah. Right? I love to write with some chords or at least some kind of track on that. Right?
Yeah.
And then I've written with other people, and it's the other way around. And it can push you on all ends there. But definitely with that, start to do some research, because technique it gives you knowledge, and knowledge equals power. Right? So the more we understand. So onward we go. We're going to hit up the third one that you can do to get past. And hopefully this is helping you. And if it is, be sure to subscribe, like, comment below. Comment other things that you're running into so that we can help you. All right, here we go.
All right, so now we're at our last tip, tip 3. And it is do co-writes.
Yes.
This is one that I have been newer to in the past few years, but it actually helps a lot to get other people's input and ideas. And one of the biggest things that I remember from doing co-writes is you might be stuck on like an idea, and someone just comes up with one word that goes, that's the what thing I'm looking for, and you help each other, and it's really cool.
You get to see other people's process, and that can be so great to go, oh, cool, maybe I'll try it that way. And just like you said, I was later to co-write. I mean, I'd always done it with like producers, so I guess I shouldn't say I was newer to it. But I think just kind of doing a lot more of it outside of just one individual at a time, like working with multiple different people, But it is really, really great to help you to have other ideas. You don't need to be in this alone. With co-writes, always do some good split sheets, which is essentially a paper agreement, or you can do some stuff online, and each of you sign it. So cover your end on the business end of it to make sure that you're both in agreement with ownership of the song. That's an important step to kind of throw in there. But it's really, really great. It gets your juices going, and a lot of times you get things done quicker.
Yeah, and it's good to be in the room with like-minded people.
Yeah.
Like, as musicians, we're not always the most, we're not everywhere in an office, right? But you can find your, like, hey, let's do a co-write.
And the other thing, too, is like-minded in the musician, but might be different ideas.
Oh, God, yeah.
Different backgrounds, different ideas, and you come from different viewpoints, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. So definitely huge advocate. If you haven't done any co-writes, do it. Find someone. There's different forums. Online you can check different things out. Maybe other music schools or studios or so forth that you can jump in there. But definitely do that. Yeah. So, quick review. Tip number 1 is...
Stop overthinking and just write.
Tip number 2 is... I'm looking at co-writes, but it's not co-writes. Understand format.
And tip number 3, do co-writes.
Yes. And lastly, please do yourself a favor. Be sure to check out below. There's a link to a free book for you all today. It is Songwriting 101, and we want to give that to you as a gift. We dive a little deeper into these things and have some other tips for you. So hope this helps, and onward we go to breaking through those barriers.